Yeah. I might have been slacking off my videos and playing this game a little too much. Seriously. 30 days non-stop of this game mode. And honestly, I would still be slacking off my videos and still be playing this game mode right now, if I could. The reason why I can't is because I have run out of storage space to be recording these battles, so now I have got to go back to the editor and use up some of this footage, so I can make some storage space on my disk again. That way I can go back into the games, and just have fun with that. Nope. Guess it's time for me to get cracking finally. So I figured I might as well put all that procrastination to use, all that time I spent in Break from Destiny, and make a tips video out of it. I may or may not be qualified to talk about these things. Maybe. Just maybe. And, with the end of the season just around the corner, along with a fresh ranking reset in the horizon, this is the perfect opportunity to brush up on your knowledge and to give yourself a running start in the new season ahead. So, to simplify this video as much as possible, I'm going to be dividing this up into about roughly 3 or 4 different parts. The goal of this video is to help you overall by providing insight on how to min-max your gameplay and to get you into the final 5 survivors at the end. The first tips are about completely min-maxing your points with a relatively aggressive gameplay style. Secondly, we'll cover some strategies to use if you prefer the game in a more pacifistic / loot goblin style. And third, we'll go over the weapons and items you'll want to be hunting for as you go about in this Battle Royale game mode, and some tips on how they should be used. Lastly, we'll review some tips and strategies that don't exactly fit within the parameters of the previous categories, but are still worth mentioning. First off, let's go over how to aggressively min-max your score, and how to carry this momentum and to survive until the very end. To start things off, rather than looting, you'll want to drop in a location that's easy to farm as many bot kills as possible. Usually, the best spot to drop off for this is by the river that is north of the R9 laboratory zone. By general rule of thumb, bots tend to converge in the center of the battle zone, and the river is a very wide open area which makes it easier to locate and to dispatch your targets as fast as possible. I say to farm as many as you can, but your goal for this should be to farm about a minimum of 4-ish bots and to end your farming session after about 6 or 7-ish kills. The reason for this limit is because each kill you score is roughly about 12 to 20 points each, depending on if you placed 5th to 1st at the end of the game, and your points will cap at 160 points for achieving 1st place, which will usually be enough after 8 kills on your scorecard. The reason why we're farming kills at the beginning instead of looting is twofold. The first reason is that as the game goes on and as the bots dwindle, it becomes increasingly more difficult to find enemies in order to maximize your points, and this will leave you behind in the competition. The second reason is that for the first 8 minutes, we have an extra life to take advantage of. So even if we get knocked out by a player during our bot farming session, we can just simply respawn in a better location as if nothing even happened. And this brings us to our next step of our aggressive, min-maxing gameplay strategy: survive. After 8 minutes have passed and we've farmed our kills, we'll no longer have the safety barrier of an extra respawn. And if we completely maxed out our scorecard with about 7 or 8 kills, then there's no need to even take any more fights until the final 2 people remain, because at this point in time, you'll no longer be able to increase your final score by defeating others. Instead, you'll obtain more points simply by ranking higher at the end of the game. So now, it's time to look to increasing the quality of our gear, so that we're better prepared for the final fights ahead. Since we spent the first 8 minutes racking up our KD ratios, we're going to be hurting on our weapon quality and our relic quantity, so getting to the emergency supply drops is going to be critical in upgrading our armor. When gunning for an emergency supply drop, it's important to get there ahead of time and not after. Showing up to the drop zone before the landing usually ensures that you'll safely obtain the loot inside without getting ambushed in the process, upgrading your gear to a purple elite grade, which is technically enough to cover you for the final fight. You should be looking to avoid taking as many fights as possible during this time, and instead, opt to loot as many chests as possible, since any more kills during this time, after 8, isn't going to increase your score, and fighting will only serve to tell anybody in the nearby vicinity where you are, making you an easy target to ambush. If you feel confident with the gear that you've obtained and see the opportunity, feel free to start picking off any players you happen to come across, but make sure that you have an escape plan ready. Remember, you're not going to get any more points for any more kills. After 16 minutes have passed, the important supply drop comes into play. This is the supply drop that contains legendary gold, armor, and weapons, so if you're still rocking purple grade elite gear at this time, you're going to want to do your best to loot the supply drop. Do your best to arrive at the drop zone before it lands. Usually, this is enough to keep you safe, but not as much as before. Other people are going to want to be gunning for the supply drop too, so there is a higher chance that you'll come across other people during this time. If you have any quantum invisibility cloaks available, it might be worth it to pop one off before you loot this supply drop, and then when you do, quickly grab everything you can and bail out ASAP. Once you're completely satisfied with your loadout, you're going to want to be as stealthy as possible as you go hunting for other players. Players are much more squishy in this game mode compared to others, so obtaining the first strike counts for a lot. To be as stealthy as possible, you do not want to do the following actions. You do not want to dodge, you do not want to double jump, you do not want to launch any attacks, you do not want to use any grapple hooks during this time, and you do not want to open up any chests during this time. All of these actions creates noise that other players can hear and use to pinpoint your location, ruining your element of surprise, or worse, make you the target of an ambush. What you do want to do while on the hunt includes patrolling the high ground, scanning bushes and trees with the grapple hook, and scanning for nearby, unseen players using the target change command. Taking the high ground naturally gives you a better visibility of the map, but it also makes it a lot harder for anybody below you to even see you as you patrol the area while you're on the hunt. Even if you can't see a target, your grapple hook can lock onto targets that might be hiding inside the bushes, so if you suspect a player of hiding around you in an area that has a lot of greenery, use the grapple hook to double check for them. And if you're in close quarters with low visibility, such as nearby a cliff or in a building with lots of walls obstructing your view, you can target lock and find players that are out of sight, but still within combat range. Doing this will also give you the advantage of the first strike at the same time. Sheesh, this has been going on longer than I expected. We finally reached our second batch of tips for improving our gameplay in Battle Royale Break from Destiny. These tips, in specific, are going to be aimed towards the more pacifistic and loot goblin-y players that are more focused on overall survival and looting the battlefield for as many items as possible. The first tip is to land in any hotspot except for the distant slopes. Seriously, don't! This area is labeled as a resource-rich zone to land at, but it's actually not. The reason for this is that the loot boxes are completely scattered throughout the area on a vertical scale. You literally have to climb mountains in order to get any of the loot in this area. There might be the same amount of loot boxes as other landing spots on an XY axis, but the distance slope spreads it out on a very extreme Z height axis as well. So the items in this area are completely spread out all over the place. Do not land at the distant slopes. The best place to land at for a pacifist loot goblin would be the Pinefall Plains. The items here are condensed enough for a profitable looting session, but it's also divided up into 2 areas, which will give yourself some room to work with, in case you happen to share this landing spot with somebody else. It's also close enough to the center of the map, but also far out enough, which makes it bearable to move in with the zone, but also not be in the middle of all the chaos. And to top it all off, there is a field boss right outside of town that's fairly easy to kill, which will guarantee upon kill that you'll get 1 legendary gold item, 1 purple elite item, and some other goodies to go with it. And this brings us to our next tip for pacifist loot goblins. If you plan to farm a field boss, do it within the first 8 minutes, if not sooner. Or better yet, do it ASAP. The longer you wait to farm a field boss, the more time you'll be giving to other players to obtain better gears to kill you while you're still busy fighting it. And when you initiate a fight with the field boss, a notification goes out to the entire map, letting everybody know what you're up to and what your location is if they wanted to try to ambush you. So if you want to farm the field boss, you better do it ASAP while everybody is still scrambling for their items. And once you're done looting all the chests at your landing zone, you should look to cash in all the money that you've obtained at a nearby vending machine. This way, you can stock up on all the relics that you want for the fights ahead. These relics have the potential to completely change the outcome of a fight, so stocking up on these is a good idea. Players that have been more focused on racking up kills are going to have next to no relics at all during this part of the early game stages, so this is one major advantage that you'll be having over them. Now, it's time to start moving in with the zone. If you want to try to increase your kill score, try to patrol the hide grounds next to the main roads while you work your way towards the center of the zone. This should give you the best possible chances of coming across some bots in order to bolster your kill score, but it may also expose your location to nearby players, so hunt with caution. Again, try to remain as stealthy as possible and do not take any of the following actions unless absolutely necessary. You do not want to dodge, you do not want to double jump, you do not want to launch any attacks, you do not want to be using your grapple hook, and you do not want to be opening up any chests during this time. All of these actions create noises that other people can hear and use to pinpoint your location, so tread carefully. And again, if you're going to obtain any emergency supply drops, try to arrive at the landing sites before they drop. As you move about the map, you should make a note to either stick to the high grounds, so that way you have better visibility and stealth on the players that are around you, or next to a cliff, so that you can use the vertical elements to help you escape, and make it as difficult as possible for your opponents to combo you, or roam about in an urban environment where there's lots of buildings to provide cover and vertical elements to help you escape from a fight. And now, let's move on to the top weapons and relics to look out for while playing this game. I would like to make a note, however, that while I am highlighting specific weapons as if I were making a tier list, this is not a tier chart. Unlike the standard PvP mode, which is dominated by a very restrictive, limited banner meta, everything here is a viable weapon in Battle Royale. However, a few weapons will stand out a little bit more when compared to the others, especially the first weapon on this list. And yes, this is a little bit hypocritical, but just go with it. And this brings us to the star weapon of Battle Royale, Samia's dual EM stars. These dual guns were always a versatile weapon, capable of strong combo loops and able to engage at any distances, and this hasn't changed one bit. But now, these guns have had their shield breaking capabilities buffed to the point where they can directly contest Meryl's greatsword head on, and even come out as the winner sometimes. When used properly, these guns are potentially the deadliest weapons on the battlefield. On a side note, Hilda's Terminator can also shred shields to pieces in a similar fashion, but it's a lot clunkier and nowhere near as versatile or as accurate, so most people will prefer to pick up the EM stars instead. Next on the list is Coco's Ice Staff. Most of the primary functions of the staff hasn't changed, and that alone makes it a threat on the battlefield. But similar to the dual guns, the Ice Staff got an even bigger buff with its shield shattering capabilities, also enabling the staff to directly contest the greatsword in a head-on fight. But it's also a lot more flexible with its combos. Yeah, I've been beating up on the greatsword for a little bit now, but regardless of the fact that Meryl's rosy edge is no longer the supreme rule of the battlefield, the greatsword still retains all of its usual defensive and shield shattering functions, making it a threat to watch out for. It also has the added bonus of coming equipped with an HP shield, which has a more pronounced presence in the Battle Royale mode as opposed to the Apex League PvP. Last and most fondly on this list for me are Crow's Thunderblades. Similar to the treatment that Samia's guns and Coco's staff got, the Thunderblades have also gotten the shield breaking capabilities buffed. Albeit, not at the same absurd levels as them, but it is enough to make head-to-head confrontations with other shield breakers a viable matchup. What really makes the Thunderblades shine in this game mode is its tracking capabilities. In Battle Royale, running is a solid strategy, and it can make it obnoxiously annoying to combo the target while they are doing so. However, the Thunderblades will completely negate this option, able to teleport and to track down the targets all the way to the ends of the earth, so long as the target lock is maintained on them. This enables them to swiftly dispatch a weakened target with ease. Just make sure you don't accidentally teleport somewhere you don't want to be. Oh, good frickin' grief. This video's turned out to be longer than I figured it would be. Moving on to the relics that you want in your loadouts. The hologun projector is by far the strongest relic to pick up in Battle Royale. Stronger than its original counterpart, your damage and your shield breaks are doubled upon use, allowing you to dominate any fight that your would-be opponents are foolish enough to pick with you. The downside is that it cannot be used to chase down a fleeing target, so it's actually best used as a defensive tool rather than for offense. Even in a different game mode, the magnetic pulse still remains as supreme as ever, enabling you to get out of jail for free and immediately retaliate in response to an attack. Since first strikes are extremely important to have in Battle Royale, this Relics helps to give you a safety barrier in case you happen to be on the receiving end of that strike. More powerful than the original, and with a large splash radius, the Lava Bomb is actually quite versatile in its uses, also giving you a strong option for surprise attacks. However, if you're like me, and you suffer lag from living on the opposite side of the country from where the servers are located, the Lava Bomb becomes a lot harder for you to use. You will no longer be able to use this relic at point blank range, or even directly hit a target with it. Instead, you either have to snipe people from a distance, or aim to throw it at the ground a little bit of a distance away instead. One of the items unique to Break from Destiny, the canned spinach has the potential to turn a very unfavorable situation to your advantage. Once used, you cannot move, but you will remain invincible and convert all damage taken into health instead. The downside to this is that your shields can still be broken during this time, so attackers can break your shields right as soon as your invincibility wears off, and then dump loads of damage onto you immediately after. The best time to use this item, as such, is after you have your shields broken. Doing this also enables even more health regeneration, since you take tons more damage after your shields are down. And finally, we have other important tips that may or may not have necessarily belonged in the previous categories, but are still absolutely worth mentioning. Whether you're on the hunt for other players, or just simply trying to survive, it's always handy to have the energy for an ultimate skill on standby. The easiest way to do this is to just find any random mob on the map, and trigger a Fantasia dodge on them. If you're looking to bolster your kill score by taking out a few bots, the most efficient way to do so is at long range. The best weapons to use for killing bots are Tsubas's bow, Hilda's Terminator, and Samir's dual guns. At melee range, you want to continually CC loop the bots, so the best weapons to use here are Echo's Spear, NA's Hammer, Crow's Thunderblades, and King's Scythe. In Battle Royale, you take tons more damage than normal when your shields are down, up to 2 times the amount of damage. You'll want to capitalize on this opportunity by using weapons that have high DPS burst and or tracking capabilities. To best take advantage of a shield break, you should try to use weapons like Cobalt's Revolver, Claudia's Gudrun Blade, or Crow's Thunderblades. In Break from Destiny, HP shields absorb lots more damage than normal, so packing Meryl's Rosy Edge or Zero's Negating Cube into your loadout could potentially give you an edge over the competition. Urban combat is a thing in Break from Destiny, which means there's going to be plenty of walls and other environmental obstacles to block your attacks. You can work around this, or even take advantage of these obstacles by using weapons that lock onto targets or pierce through walls, such as Crow's Thunderblades, Zero's Cube, or Shiro's Chakra. Usually nocturnal by nature, these creatures usually make their presence known during the last matches of the day. They're an endangered species and pacifistic by nature, so if you encounter one in the wild, you should leave it alone. Or better yet, make friends with them. If you decide to attack and kill them, you're an absolute piece of and you deserve to rot in the most painful and prolonged deaths in the deepest depths of hell. Oh my goodness. I did not think that this video was going to end up being so long for what I thought was just going to be a couple of tips and ideas here and there. Hopefully, you might have gleaned a few ideas from this, and best of luck to you in the new seasons.